What's up, fellow gamers? Welcome to my Matrix and hacking and hacker class tutorial here. I have 600 hours plus played in the game so far, most of that on Chrome difficulty. Haven't lost a merc yet, and so I'm here to share some of my knowledge to you. It's going to be sort of 4 parts this video. Number 1 is just a walkthrough of basic hacking using an example level 3 hacker with no upgrades whatsoever in the kit. We're going to go through picking what your starting hacker could or should be, going through the progression of a hacker throughout the game, and then a showcase of late game hacking. You can kind of fill in the blanks in the middle there. So we've got a respect hacker who has as many talent points as a level 3 hacker would. We're going to be jacking into a green matrix host, and we're going to start as though you know almost nothing, and we're going to start by talking about the UI a whole bunch. There are timestamps in the description below to get past some of this. Hopefully you can get the parts that you want. So up in the top left is if these run out, the hack is over. So yeah, here's the name, here's armor, don't write this too much. So if you literally run out of health, your guy goes unconscious. Obviously that's pretty bad. You disconnect, you got to heal in a meat space, have someone else come in with a med kit. This is functionally not going to be a problem with solo hacking, and it should rarely be a problem with hacking in a host as part of a meat space mission. Obviously, protect your hacker, make sure he's safe, and you're going to be okay. I have never, ever run out of actual health via hacking. It's not a huge deal. Don't worry about it too much. Next one is Cyberdeck health. This one is a money drain. If your Cyberdeck takes damage, you will, in fact, have to pay for repairs at some point. The cost increases non-linearly, so the more damaged your deck is, the even more it costs to health. Again, more than linear, so try to keep on top of it. Honestly, there are pretty reliable ways to not have to worry about Cyberdeck health, so this will usually not be a big impact, and you're going to be fine. The one you do care about, and this won't matter in the early game, but it will eventually later on, is connection health. Now, the nice thing is this is very, very easily regained. The easy way to do it in the early game is simply disconnect. If you disconnect and there are no ice in the node, you disconnect safely, you reconnect, your health goes back 100%, no big deal. Literally come out, come back in, re-get your connection. The downside of that is going to be that your talents might be on cooldown. The programs you have will all be unloaded and have to be reloaded next turn. And if you jack in the same turn that you disconnect, you'll be set to 0 action points. But otherwise, if it's like turn 2 and you disconnect and you still have some AP left over, you can come right back in. You got to reload your programs, but you'll have action points to spend, so it won't be nearly as bad. So again, don't let these run out. The primary long-term consideration is Cyberdeck health, but it is handleable. The primary late-game consideration will be connection health. That is also handleable, so don't worry about it too much. Okay. We'll talk quickly then about deck shield and deck armor. We'll start with deck shield. Deck shield is functionally bonus health. You will see some ice that'll deal 10, 15, 25 damage to your Cyberdeck on any action, or on program use or something else, or on an escalation. It will detract from shield before Cyberdeck health. So as long as you have some shield, you cannot lose health, no big deal. Cyberdeck shield does not protect your health. If you're going to take damage, you're going to take damage. Now again, it doesn't tend to be a large concern, but it's still there. Hey, there's mechanics. The other part is Cyberdeck armor. Cyberdeck armor is like better shield. It is a flat damage reduction. It's 1-to-1 for Cyberdeck damage, and it's 0.5-to-1 for health damage. So let's say you had 10 Cyberdeck armor, and an ice was going to deal 15 damage to your Cyberdeck. It would only deal 5 damage to your shield, and then any carryover damage, the rest of that 5 damage would go to your health. But whatever it is, subtract it by 6 or 10 or whatever. Every single time, every single situation. Which means if you're on a node with an ice that deals 10 damage every single action, and you've got at least 9 deck armor, you can be like, you know what? I can just ignore you, and it's not a big deal. Minimum damage is 1. It will not actually deal 0, but if you're in a state with like 15 armor and 30 shield, you can just start ignoring some ice, and it won't really matter. Again, armor is half value against your actual health, so a 15 damage escalation. I have 6 deck armor here. 15 minus 3, I will take 12 damage. Right, in the case of 6 armor, that's going to reduce 3 damage. Okay, cool. So there's the top left, no big problem. We'll go to the top right next, which is the matrix security level. And we'll even go left of this a little bit and talk about this. So every matrix map is handcrafted. They've got a name here. I believe this is non-random. Every joint processing host will look exactly like this. And in fact, every single ice type down here will also be, not ice, sorry, every single node will be entirely non-random. I forget which one is CPU in this node. I think it's like one of these 4. But regardless, it's all non-random. If you start to recognize these, or you decide to take screenshots and hold a bunch of them up, feel free. If you want to power game that, you're more than welcome to. But hey, by the way, that's how the name is concerned. The rating doesn't tend to mean very much. It gives a vague indication of how strong the ice are. This is fairly inexact, but it will moderately tell you, like, yeah, okay, this is this level of host. Here's roughly how hard the ice are going to be, but this isn't the primary determination, so it's a vague indication. Don't worry about it too much, though. The next one, though, is the quantum security. Now, the quantum security handles everything right over here in the top right corner. So there are basically 3 things to look at. So one is filling up the tally bar. When you fill up the tally bar, much like with any kind of meat space mission, you will get an escalation. This escalation could be turn on every ice that has been turned off in this host entirely. This could be shove you to a random location. This could be deal a bunch of damage to your health. This could be deal a bunch of damage to your cyberdeck. This could be deal a bunch of damage to your connection health. It can get pretty gnarly, it can get pretty nasty. Specifically, the types of escalations available are specifically in line with the QSec AI. So Boa is not very scary. Diamond Cobras will pretty thoroughly kick your teeth in. You got to kind of find a way to deal with that. There are ways to deal with that, but hey, by the way, this is the primary metric, I would say, through which Matrix hosts get harder. Pay attention here. This truly does matter quite a bit. The secondary point here is, of course, there's an escalation tally. So every action that is not using a talent, but if you want to connect to a node, if you want to scan a node, load a program, any of those things, you will add tally up here. Now, the minimum is actually 1. One of the starting hackers has minus tally per action. Some of these nodes will say they have 0 tally on them. The true minimum is actually 1, and so if I sit here and load and unload program 60 times, I will eventually get a security escalation. But it's worth noting that different nodes have different tally per action here. Some ice can affect tally per action, and so there's some power gaming, I guess, or just optimizations to make around loading programs and taking actions in the right locations. Again, generally speaking, terminal nodes only ever give, in true function, 1 tally per action, so it's pretty chill. Okay, that's pretty much that. Not much else to bring up here. Let's go to the bottom left UI now, and this is basically all per turn stuff. This is how much can I do on this turn. So first up is action points. I think there's basically nothing spicy to talk about with action points here. It's exactly what you expect. A couple considerations is that every 1 meat space AP will give you 10 matrix AP. And for example, loading a program always costs 5. Using a program you see costs 5 or 4 or 3. As you get high level programs, the AP costs go down. So AP gets more efficient with more expensive programs. Your talents can cost 5 or 10 or 0. And so that's kind of your situation here. Usually things are 0 to 10 AP, not much beyond that. So there's a lot of granularity, which means there's a bit of room for optimization around at the very end of your turn. You've got like 13 action points left. Like, well, I can spend 12 if I do these 2 actions. I can spend 10 if I do these 2 actions. And you can like try to min-max. It's not a very big deal, but it's technically there. It technically exists. The next primary constraint is deck IO. So every program, specifically programs with things in green, every program you load costs IO for the rest of that turn. If I load and unload disarm over and over and over and over again, it'll cost 60, then another 60, then another 60, then another 60, and I can only ever load a program 3 times, and then I'm out of deck IO. As you get higher level programs, their AP costs go down, their IO costs go up. And so as you progress through the game and get higher level Cyberdecks, you get more IO, you can load higher level programs more easily, and then your AP goes farther. That's the primary loop there. The final constraint here is active memory. This is specifically, it's the same mechanic here. You can see plus 60 each time. They're all loading up identically. But specifically, memory is only while it's loaded. So if I load and unload disarm and then load and unload it again, or let's say I load disarm, I unload it, and I load it a second time, I will have spent 120 IO. I will only have 60 active deck memory. The reason this matters is because programs will stay loaded between turns. You can see, for example, I have 4 charges of scan, I have 3 charges of sleaze, I have 2 charges of attack. I might load these programs, not use them all in turn 1, go into turn 2, my IO will reset, my AP will reset, but my memory is still going to be capped out. And what's the math here? Well, 60 plus 60 plus 60 plus 60 is 240. I have attack here as well. That's 320. I literally cannot, on a starting Cyberdeck, load all 5 programs at once. It is not possible until I get some cyber surgery to have more max memory, or I buy a high-level Cyberdeck to have more max memory and thus load all programs. That is, again, one of the progression vectors of hacking. So the final thing to bring up here is, again, you have all your programs. You can unload them. Unloading them is relatively inexpensive. It will free up your memory, lets you reload them. But otherwise, again, your IO has been in use for the turn. Your AP has been spent however you spent them, whatever else. Second thing is your talents. Talents do not cost IO. They do not cost memory because they are not programs. They often cost action points, but they give you some kind of a buff. Hardshell gives you Cyberdecks shield. I'll scroll so it's easier to read. Hardshell gives Cyberdecks shield. Overclock gives plus AP, plus a bunch of IO, not memory, but IO. It gives you matrix damage, and it'll actually damage your connection this and the next 2 turns. And so again, in the early game, connection health is not a big concern. There's not a lot of ice that damages it, and there's not a lot of escalations that'll damage it, so it won't be a big problem. But hey, this can start to add up. Be a little bit careful. Again, in the early game, don't worry too much. Null Op is sort of the final early game hacking talent. This is not pre-learned at level 1. I would recommend respecting your hacker and getting this by level 2 or 3. In my level 3 sort of version of this character, I've got 2 charges of Null Op, and it does a moderate amount of damage. So anyway, you're here to hack. Let me... There we go. Okay. So that's the UI rundown. I believe nothing else here is of super importance. I guess I'll say a couple more things real quick. You might have leverage here. In this case, I don't. But if you were to buy leverage from your contacts or from your hacking station, you would see it down here. Some leverage is passive and will pop the instant you connect. Notably, the 100 IO hacking station leverage is a passive, as well as the purchased matrix snoop is a passive leverage. It will pop every single time. You don't have to worry about that one. But some of the leverage here is active. Make sure you click and check and see if you need the extras. Next tally over, this is a solo hack node, so they don't have anything here. But if you're hacking as part of a meat space hack, this will tell you what security devices are connected to the node itself. You can find them from the outside. If you hover and the default keyboard bind is H, you can inspect and tab around and say, oh, what are all the cameras and laser wires and doors or whatever that's tagged to this matrix host? And you can find that there. Or you can get it from inside here to know, oh, I do want to chase down a security control unit or remote control unit because I tab around. I'm like, actually, I care about that door. I care about those lasers. Okay, good to know. This hack, of course, won't have them, but hey, by the way, it's one of the node types. You can disconnect as long as there is either no ice on the node or all the ice on the node is either sleeping or disabled, you can disconnect safely. But if there are any spicy ice in the node, if anything is active, if a trap has been sprung and not disabled, if there's active or passive ice there, you will get dump shocked if you disconnect. You will see a little red warning arrow if that happens. We'll see it when we move forward. I'll show it to you again later. But hey, by the way, that's scary. Ending your turn is almost always safe. But specifically, there are 2 node types. One is called an incinerator. The other is a CPU that hasn't been spiked. If you end your turn on those nodes, they will dump shock you. So there's a little bit of path consideration, but usually, like 85% of the time, you are okay to end your turn. It will, again, reset your AP, reset your IO, keep your programs, your talents will tick down by 1 turn, but nothing too scary here. Okay, so that's the UI. Let's talk about going through an example hack. We are going to be cosplaying a level 3 hacker on a fairly early game BOA CPU or BOA matrix hack. No big deal. Okay, so first things first, I would recommend literally always, every single time you start hacking, load hardshell and load overclock. Hardshell gives you 20 deck shield, which means you're not going to lose health on your cyberdeck. If you lose health in your cyberdeck, you have to pay for the repairs yourself. It eats in your profits. 5 matrix AP is nothing, and deck shield does not have a duration. 5 AP costs nothing. There's no timeout. Do it literally every time. I don't think there's a single reason. Well, there is later game, but in the early game, just load hard shell. Don't think about it. Do this every single time with no consideration whatsoever. That said, in the early game, you do not need more than basic hard shell. You don't need the cooldown to be shorter. You don't need bonus charges. You don't need extra shield. You don't need extra deck armor. Level 1 hard shell is good enough. You are totally fine. Trust me. Other one is overclock. As we kind of saw from the early sort of IO in the early game, you only had like 220. It is really painful to go through early hacking without overclock on. I recommend maxing up all the upgrades. You won't tend to need the duration upgrades for a while. Some of them are required because they block other things, but you don't need to fully cap out overclock. That said, it's very good. I recommend getting it. Spend what you can. It's very, very strong. The final talent that you care about here is going to be Null Op. You will probably not have this level 1. I recommend getting it around level 2 or level 3 though. This allows you to get through very annoying or spicy nodes that are going to be too awkward to otherwise get through. And so have this on hand to bail you out in bad situations. We'll talk more about the upgrade pacing here, but to me, these are the 3 core hacking talents. And it really means that, like, you can spend like 10 points in the hacker tree and you are good for a really, really long time. You do not have to hard single class hacker. Even in higher difficulties, it's not that big of a deal. It, of course, matters more in higher difficulties, but these three could put you in a good spot. Let's move on to hacking itself, though. You load these talents. Okay, great. And then you should basically always load scan. And I think realistically, every single time with no exceptions, always scan where you are and identify the neighboring node. Okay, I think no exceptions literally always do this. I think players who don't do this, I think, are making mistakes here. I think you should literally always scan and see what's adjacent here. And there's two ways to consider it from here. One is, okay, well, I see there's a circle icon, match circle icon. Oh, I need deception to knock down active ice. And you just, you do 3-year-old pattern matching. This is fine. This is very reasonable. And in fact, we can start by doing this and say, you know what? I'm here. I see this firewall has active ice. Let me load deception. Okay, I've loaded deception. Let me connect down here to the firewall. And I see, hey, this ice buster is going to damage my connection on any action I take. That seems like a bad thing. I don't want to have that happen. Because if I were to not disable that, if I were to scan, this would pop and damage my connection by 10. And I'd see whatever ice is here. And there might be passive ice there, and I might need to load sleaze. Or there might be possible trap ice there. I need to load disarm. Each time I do that, oh, I scan, 10 damage to connection. I load sleaze, 10 damage to connection. I load disarm, 10 damage to connection. I connect over down here, 10 damage to connection. Why deal with that? Why ever deal with that? And the consideration otherwise would be like, what if I were to not scan? What if I were to walk here, and this would say unknown ice here, no idea what's here. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll scan. 10 damage to connection. Oh, it's an active ice. Let me load deception. 10 damage to connection. There's really no reason ever to walk into nodes blindly. There is in like 0.1% of considerations. Don't worry about it. Just scan from the outside, color match or shape match, and be like, I should use deception. Bam. Cool. So of course, because I loaded scan, I'm up 60 IO. Because I loaded deception, I'm 60 IO. You can see I'm also, 60 each, so 120. Because I have 2 programs loaded, I'm at 120 memory, right? And I've spent some action points, but I have plenty to spend still. Okay, and you'll notice here that this node is actually scarier, right? This thing was 0, but because the minimum is 1, I was getting 1 tally from loading scan, 1 tally from loading deception, but now I'm getting 3 tally per action, right? I moved down and I got my 4th tally from moving, and then I used deception and I got 3 tally. I'm at 7. And so I'm going to scan, I'm going to 10. But I scan, I see, oh, there's more active ice down there. Good to know. I should knock down that active ice. But if you're really trying to optimize, I would recommend always loading at least sleaze and deception. Not always disarm as well. This one's a bit more situational, but I would always load scan, sleaze, and deception on the early node, because that way you get less security tally. And why have more when you can have less? You will very commonly run into passive and active ice basically all the time. Disarm, trap ice, a little bit more rare. The need for attack, even more rare. In fact, while we're here, let's talk about attack now. So attack, instead of letting you disable in ice, right? This is now gone. And you notice that I didn't take any tally damage, right? I took the 9 from overclock. I did not take the 10 from buster because I disabled it. And the disable happens first. It happened before this does anything, right? Well, there's 2 things here. I could have chosen to attack it, right? And attacking will deal about 43 damage on average, which might kill it, right? Overclock is giving me 25% more matrix damage, so 50 damage on average. I'm likely to kill it. In fact, 38 might, even the mineral likely kills. I think it's close enough here. So I could destroy it instead. But let's do some math here, right? Deception costs 60 IO to load and 4 AP to use. Attack costs 80 IO to load and 5 AP to use. And if I destroy this ice, I generate 10 security tally. By disabling it, I just got the baseline 3. This would have been 10 for destroying it, plus the baseline 3. And so in the early game, realistically, there's no reason to go spam attack. Your primary vector through hacking should be loading sleaze and deception and occasionally disarm and pattern matching and moving on, okay? That is the primary gameplay, and you're going to make totally good progress. So anyway, what we see here is that there is an access node down here with an active ice on it. We can connect, and we see we have a new type. Real quick, we notice that, hey, if we disconnected here, it would be bad, right? Because there's an active ice that is currently alive on the node. That's a bad thing. If I were to hit this, I would dump shock. That would be bad. I'd get stunned. I'd take stress. I'd take damage. Life would be pain. Why would I bother? I could end my turn, because ending your turn is fine. But again, that would be kind of painful. So this ice said, if I take an action, it's going to damage my connection. This one is actually going to already be preemptive here It's already on. We're getting 7 per action right now because it's adding 5 tally to every action automatically. So this is adding 5 tally to any action I take. Again, I don't want to scan here, load programs, figure out what's going on. Let's just take it down now. Now I will take the full 7, but now we're in a much more docile node. This node is normally worth 2, right? It's normally worth 2. I'm getting 2 tally per action, not too scary. And so I can scan, see what's nearby. I can load sleaze, I can load deception, I can load disarm. And in fact, I'm going to load all 3 because that's actually correct. And of course, I could have loaded these up here and I would have had a little bit less tally because this sleaze would have been worth 1. This disarm would have been worth 1 instead of worth 2 down here. Very, very minor, but it's there. Okay, so firewalls and access nodes are what I would consider tier 1 ice. Tier 1 nodes. And tier 1 meaning the easiest nodes. They never have traps. They often have a very low number of ice. They will only ever have passive ice for sleaze and active ice for deception. And the severity of that ice, right, like 5 tally per action or 10 connection health per action, like those are pretty tame. They're easily handleable. It's not a very, very big deal. And so you'll see firewalls, you'll see access nodes, and you'll see a third type called an incinerator, which follows the same rules. The ice count is low, there are never traps, and the ice severity is low as well. So those are easy. You can path through them, and there's no surprises. Scan from the outside, you are completely chilling. It is not a problem. Okay, but now we go into what I consider a tier 2 node. And I'll really call this a tier 2.5, but whatever, don't worry about it too much. Sub-processing units are different. So because they're not cubes, because they're not orange, they're special, right? So orange cubes are easy. Circles are hard. So sub-processing units can in fact hold traps. And in fact, the fact that we don't see any ice at all down here on the scan means there's definitely traps. There's 100% definitely traps down here. Traps cannot be revealed from an easy outside scan. You see how this says scan 2 of 2? Because I'm at scan 2 of 2, I now know if there are traps here or not. But coming from the outside here, this is going to be scan 1 of 2. And we can connect over and see scan 1 of 2 says here's what the node type is. And if there's active or passive ice, I'll show you. Active ice, by the way, always show up on the left. Passive ice always show up on the right. Traps, I think, usually on the right as well. I think actually literally always on the right. So you can kind of metagame slightly how that goes. But you see, I'm here, and there's no passive ice. There's no active ice, but there are traps. And I have no idea what the traps are. And in fact, if I'm really, really, really worried about it, I could hit null op, damage every ice in the node, and it would probably, but not guaranteed, kill the traps there, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. But realistically, there's probably a trap here, and it's probably something kind of annoying. So we're going to scan and see what happens. Okay, one of the traps is here, and it's if you take any action, restart all ice in the node. Now, thankfully, there were no other ice in the node. So it's basically a dead trap, but hey, that could have been a real concern, that could have been a real problem. The trap sprung, right? It's hiding, right? I scanned from the outside, didn't see the trap. I take any action, the trap springs. That is how a large number of traps work, is on any action, surprise, and do you know what it's going to do? Not a clue. There are ways to handle that later on with hacking drugs and talents and whatnot, but for now, right, take any action, restart any ice. It's a trap. Okay, well, I'm still at scan 102. Because the trap sprung, it preempted my program usage. We didn't actually scan yet. Let's scan again. Here we go. Ah, we see the other trap now. If you exit this node, steal 10 matrix AP. Well, that's a problem as well. Now, it's actually worth noting that theoretically, this thing actually popped Ice Diamond. It feels like a slightly buggy interaction. I don't know what to tell you here, but some traps, specifically the ones that steal AP, when they are live, they actually stay live and have this 10 tally back thing going on. And so even though I haven't exited the node, we are getting this interaction here where this opened up the ice and said, hey, by the way, it's active here. So bit of a weird interaction, but you have to got to knock this one down because we're getting 10 tally per action, back down to 1. Okay, much safer. All right, well, other thing about traps is the majority of them only spring once. We are in a bit of a complex space right now where this thing says, hey, if you take any action, restarts all ice, and then it's done. This trap will not trigger again. It's already done its job. It happened to wake this one up because that's the way the ice interact. And this is one of a very, very few types of ice that have a passive ongoing action here. So, hey, by the way, that's here. But otherwise, I've used up my scan charges. I've got to load scan again, and look at that. You can see, right, my IO is 360. My memory is 240 because I've had to reload deception once. I've had to reload scan once. And so IO is what you can run out of. And you can see, oh, yeah, I've got AP to spare. My IO is tapped out. Turns out overclock's pretty good. We'll scan one more time. There we go. So now we know there are no other traps here, right? Scan 2 of 2. There are no longer any other surprises. And we see that there are neighboring nodes here. There's another easy mode node here. There's access node. There's also a data warehouse. So data warehouse is, if this is a 2.5 where there can be scary traps, this is tier 2. And the reason I say it's tier 2 is because it holds downloads here, right? It's a cold storage for files, and indeed they will go into your cold storage when you download them, and you'll get some files out of it. The passive ice here will basically always be, hey, until you disable me, you can't download anything. And so one of the ice slots is used up by something that cannot be scary for you. There's still an active ice there. There may even be a trap there. It's possible. But hey, we've got a relatively easier situation to look forward to, because we know this is guaranteed to be something that's very, very chill. And then this is going to be active ice, and then there might be a trap. Okay, well, we've already taken this down. This is gone. Let's make progress. And so we'll go to a tier 2 node, the data warehouse. So you can see there are files to download. We cannot download them because, unsurprisingly, the data log says you cannot download until it's disabled or destroyed. Not a big surprise, very expected. Now, of course, right, we're finally in a spot where we have choices to make. We're finally in a spot where this had only one ice, this had only one ice. This one functionally only had one at a time. This one finally matters. We have choices to make here. Well, obviously the passive ice doesn't hurt us at all, so we should always get rid of it last. This active ice does matter, and in fact, everything we ever do, we will lose 10 connection health. So this seems like a pretty high priority. We should knock it down. Now, there might be a trap here. The trap could spring on downloading a file. The trap could spring on taking any action. The trap could spring on using a program. The trap could spring on leaving. There could be a lot of possible triggers here, but we don't know until we scan. And scanning is not only doing an action, but also using a program, which means scanning and disabling this ice buster are the same trigger. So there's no reason to like scan first. This already has downside. Just take down the active ice. So we deception. Okay, well, whatever the trap ice is, if it's there, does not trigger on any action or any program. Let's scan. Okay, good to know. There's no traps here. All right, easy enough. Well, I would like a download, please. So let me sleaze you. Now I can download, spend 5 AP. All right, we got our first escalation. Great. So we finally ticked over QSEC up to 60, and we hit QSEC level 1. And so the escalation for QSEC level 1 for a BOA QSEC AI was to force deload scan 1. Okay. Well, that cost me some action points. That cost me some matrix IO. That's fine. We're done here. And now, well, what's my next consideration? Well, I could, if it weren't an incinerator, I could walk over here and I can color match, right? Incinerators, like firewalls, like access nodes, are tier 1. They only ever have active and passive ice. The outside scan here revealed what the node was. I see there's active ice here. And if it wasn't an incinerator, if this was a firewall or an access node, I could walk over here. Right, connecting costs 2 action points. I will get 1 tally for it. I will use deception, spend 4 action points, and then the incinerator will be, I will knock the ice down, and look at that, I did my job. The problem is, it's an incinerator. If I end my turn here, I get screwed. Now, if I realize I'm in a bad state, I can try to disconnect if there's no ice there, but that seems pretty dangerous. That seems not worthwhile. Now, technically, I could min-max here, spend 2 to connect over, knock it down with deception, then spend 2 to come back. I don't care enough. I mean, okay, we'll do it because it's optimal. So walk over, damage to connection on any action, right? Same as I've seen before. Spend the 4 AP. I have 2 AP left. I can go back. Again, you can count, right? Again, there are no unknowns here, so I knew I had the AP. But if you don't want to risk it, don't bother. It's fine. All right, so it's my first turn of hacking being done. Great. And so what did we do on our first turn of hacking? Well, we loaded a bunch of programs. We loaded some of our talents. We got through 1, 2, 3, 4, and arguably 5 full nodes. But where are we now? Well, we're flying blind. Our scan is gone, and we probably will need deception no matter what. So, like, let's just load it now. I feel like you should basically always have sleaze and deception up at all points in time. There's not really a reason why not to do it. So let's go back to the incinerator, and let's scan. Okay, cool. We found another tier 0 node. This network endpoint, much like the terminal node here, is always empty. It actually, unlike this tooltip, it never contains ice. It is a 0 tally per action area. So if I wanted somewhere safe to load programs, I could walk over here, load a bunch of stuff, come back out. That would be fine, but whatever. We are now at our second interesting node type, which is the CPU. Unfortunately, I'm in this awkward spot that I was earlier where my deck is not good enough to hold all my programs. If I got a level 2 Cyberdeck, I would have enough memory to host attack as well, but I don't. So I'm going to try to bleed off some of my... I could, if I wanted to, I could click here. I could unload sleaze. I would lose the charges. It wouldn't cost me all that much to unload it, but, I would like to not waste my stuff. And so I'm going to wait. Basically, if you scan, and you get scan 2 of 2, and you don't reveal a node, this must be the CPU. Now, in some cases, such as this one, hacking the CPU and spiking the CPU is literally the primary objective, and so of course I want to go do it. That's not always going to be the case, but for example, if all I was doing was hunting for files, or trying to hack like a security control unit or something, then going like this and ignoring the CPU and just going down would be completely viable, because there is not a ton of value in that. But I'm going to go ahead and be like, well, we have stuff we want to do, so let's go this way. Okay, so there's a few. Let's just go for the CPU. Ultimately, let's just do that. Now, there are three kind of basic approaches to the CPU. First, we're going to walk over and be like, hey, first of all, you cannot end your turn here because there are active ice in the node. Yep, okay, there is one active or passive ice, and then there's some number of traps based on this, like, very, very, like, scan zero situation, right? There's one active or passive ice, and there's some number of traps. We can't disconnect because, much like an incinerator, you cannot, we can't disconnect because there's active ice here, right? It's a hard disconnect. You can't end your turn because it is an unspiked CPU. Okay, well, there's some number of traps, and there's an active or passive ice. Now, one option is just press null op. Click, and you will probably be done. It is very powerful, and I recommend everyone get null op because it allows CPU spikes to be very, very painless, very, very fast, very, very cheap, and just really chill overall. It also allows you to go to nodes like this one, where it was all traps, all hidden, and it's like, that's annoying too. Click null op, they're all gone. It's very effective. It's worth a fair bit of tally, but it's fine. But what if we go for it the conventional way? Well, we scan and we see, okay, 10 damage in any action. Well, with our 6 armor and 20 shield, all we did was, right there you can see, we lost 4 health to our shield. We also know that whatever trap is here does not activate on any action because it would have popped by now. So, we deception, that's gone. We scan again, what do we see? Well, if you exit the node, restarts all ice in the node. Okay, well, I'm not going to leave, not necessarily. So there are more considerations here. Okay, let's break this down. So we, of course, cannot spike the CPU without destroying all the ice on it. It must be destroyed, not disabled, which means we need null op or we need attack. Now, of note, active ice, still relatively low health. A single charge of attack will in fact kill them. Traps are tanky though. Traps are often 2 charges of attack, which can be really scary. That can be, really not worthwhile. It can be really painful. It can take you a lot of time. And until you spike the CPU, again, you can of course leave, although this ice is going to be annoying. And of course, if I do that, it's going to restart the ice in the node, and then I have to knock this one down again. It's going to be very awkward. I don't want to do it. So, of course, we want to attack them. Okay, 2 considerations here. 1, I need to offload a program somewhere to be able to fit the memory to load it. I've got the IO, I've got the AP, don't have the memory for it, so I have to unload a program. And an easy way to do that is to simply disarm this, and look, I've got the spot, and I can load attack. Cool. That's piece 1. Okay, great. Next piece is the fact that if you have hard disabled the ice, not sleeping, disabled, this QSEC tally if destroyed will not fire. A disabled ice does not generate tally, and so even though normally, I've got about 30 to go until escalation, this is going to generate 25. Actually, no. I get my 1 per action as normal, and we're fine, right? It was disabled, did not add 10 tally. Now, the odds of killing this are very, very low. Indeed, we didn't. We got 60 damage. We've got a load attack again. Okay, fine. Down it goes, finally destroyed. You cannot, so now I can finally scan a second time. The CPU is fully revealed. And when you scan 2 of 2 the CPU, by the way, it takes every node and 50-50 coin flips, should I reveal you or not. The real benefit here is that a pre-revealed node, if you scan its neighbor, will actually reveal traps. And so it can often be very worthwhile, especially in the harder matrix hosts where the traps are really gnarly, rushing the CPU and revealing it, and thus allowing your outside scans to reveal traps can be really, really effective and make the rest of your job go much easier. Another way to consider it is if you can buy Matrix Snoop or any other leverage that reveals specific nodes. You can get nodes, you can get leverage that reveals CPU. You can get leverage that reveals specifically download hubs like this. That will allow you to be in a good spot where the outside scans will also reveal traps there, which is kind of nice. And CPUs, much like download nodes, are of course, rife with dangerous nodes. CPUs, by the way, much like SPUs, are what I consider tier 2.5 nodes because they don't have downloads, because they don't have security control on them. They never have garbage passive ice, so their ice allotment can only ever go to things with actual impact. Sometimes, again, the trap trigger is when I leave the node, and it's like, oh, cool, that doesn't exist. I can hang out for a bit, but that's not always gonna be the case. So we spike the CPU. That will be mission complete. We'll get our dialogue here real quick. Not going to slow me down. Well done. Great. So now the CPU is spiked. The other thing that happens, you might have seen it in the tooltip earlier, it deletes 2 escalations worth of tally, which means if you're really, really trying to min-max, you might want to wait until you're at least QSec level 2. It's not really that important. And I want to point out, by the way, right, the scan reveal is not the exact same point as the spike. You can technically scan 2 of 2 without killing the ice, get the reveal, and then do something else later if you really, really wanted to. But you're probably going to do them at the same rate and at the same time. But technically, that is an option. So CPU is spiked. We go all the way back down to 0 tally, 0 escalation. And because of this now, when we go back to QSec level 1, it will not escalate because it's already done QSec level 1. That is now a dead level, and so we can generate a full 120 tally until our next escalation. Isn't that nice? All right, well, we can move forward here. That's already been knocked down. We have the ability to knock down passive ice, so we can go here. This active ice is, or this one is access node, is going to be like, hey, adds 4 AP to all choices. I don't like that. I could, of course, choose to attack it. That would generate some tally. I could use sleaze instead, but honestly, because specifically in this case, my Cyberdeck is in an annoying spot here, I'm just going to attack it anyway. It spends some AP. It gets some extra tally. I don't really care. It allows me to pretty cleanly get rid of attack and have some open space. So now I scan, and what do I see? Well, because these were pre-revealed, I can now reveal the traps down here. I can reveal these hidden traps. Now, unfortunately, I'm still starved on IO, so even though I have some AP, I can't do much, but oh well. Now, the last thing I can do, though, is do a couple of small optimizations, because we go to this hub, and we say, well, if you load a program steal AP, I don't need to load any programs. I've got sleaze here for the data lock. I can knock you down. I can take these downloads, and you know what? I don't care about this trap. Because I know what it is, I'm gone. And so I can end turn 2 here. And then, we don't know what this trap is, but you know what? I'll load disarm if I good and well need it. What's down here? Oh, it's again when you load a program. Okay, well, really, really easy. Again, the passive ice is always a data lock if it's there. They're not always there. These are not guaranteed to always have a data lock on them, but if it is, it's pretty free. We got our free accounts, and look at that, we're done. This ice is sleeping, and because it's sleeping, we can disconnect, and we've gotten our downloads, we've gotten our mission complete, we can walk to the exit, and that's how you do hacking. Let's talk about picking your starting hacker. I think ultimately this is not a huge deal. You can pick whatever you want, and most of the power and progression mechanics in hacking are not related to your starting choice here, but we can kind of go through some very quick pros and cons. In the top left is going to be their backstory. Feel free to pick whichever one appeals to you. As far as the quality of their contacts, they're basically identical. I don't think there's a very important choice to make here between getting Diego from Dade or getting Dusty here from Remy. I think they're pretty much the same, so don't worry about it too much. Otherwise, though, the primary considerations are going to be things like their background traits and then their actual background sort of story tags as well. Dade specifically is eligible for a one-off story mission related to rescuing a sibling. You have to have a contact who was raised on the streets, or sorry, a merc who was raised on the streets, and if you don't have Dade and you don't run a couple other mercenaries, you might have nobody with this trait, and so you might lose out on one small story mission. It's a way to recruit a pretty solid secondary hacker. I think it's pretty strong overall, so that is a reason to go for Dade. Right now, though, I believe there's nothing special or unique around Remy. She has no missions that specifically tie into things that she herself and only she do. So the real consideration now is, hey, how good is their background trait and how good are the 2 levelable traits? Well, this one will never level up. So what do we get? We get a decent stat spread overall. Tech, of course, the primary stat for a hacker. I would argue will is second best. So an okay spread there. Health, not a really big deal ultimately. Having more than 200 is nice. It allows you to walk through laser wires without triggering stress. Otherwise, not a huge deal. 2 Cyberdeck armor, definitely pretty nice. 10% matrix damage, also quite nice as well. This allows your null op to knock things out a bit more conveniently, or nuke and things like that. Flat Cyberdeck armor, generally pretty useful as well. Gives you a lot of more grace running through. Totally solid, totally reasonable, very reasonable. As far as Digital Rush is concerned, 20 flat IO, especially if it levels up and gets higher and higher, this is a pretty big deal. In the really, really early game, either IO or AEP are going to be your primary constraint. In the late game, IO is definitely your primary constraint, and so getting some extra IO there is going to let you get more stuff done per turn, which means for basically especially solo CPU hacks where you're trying to get as far through as possible. This is just, I churn through more of the host every single turn. I am more likely to one-shot them with attack. I'm more likely to one-shot with nuke or null op. Dade has really, really good traits for ensuring a lot of forward progress every single turn and quickly. Great. Final trait here is Calm, which is fine. Again, Will is the secondary stat, and as the reason why is for stress resist specifically. It is very hard to avoid taking stress rolls as a hacker, and so having innate stress res, pretty reasonable, means there's less downtime trying to not take stress. Ignore recoil is specifically, of course, only good in combat, but this is fine. This is, in a lot of cases, functionally 1% accuracy. This can level up over time as well and be worth 2, 3, 4% accuracy. This is okay. It is an acceptable combat talent here, but he's good at going through hosts fast, which is very reasonable. Remy, meanwhile, has different options here. More tech overall, kind of nice. A little bit of reaction for move speed is cool. The low health means that actually navigating through the world is going to be a little bit more difficult. It means that running through laser wires will actually give her a stress roll, which can be a problem. Evasion, minus move detection, generally not going to be that important for a hacker. You're not going to be in those situations all that often, I would say. When hacking, gain 10 Matrix AP. Okay, cool. That's not bad. Of course, Dade comes in with 10% Matrix damage and 5 AP, but it levels up. So I would say this is, pretty good at the start, especially early on. If you invest heavily into overclock, you can easily see yourself with AP being your limit, and so not unreasonable. What's really exciting though is the -1 to QSec tally increases, both in the innate talent and in zero print here, which will level up over time. This is quite nice, to be clear. This is actually very, very good. Again, the minimum is still going to be 1 tally per action. But what it allows you to do is have far fewer QSec escalations. And especially when you consider that in the late game, when you're running into just the really late game high power level matrix hosts, the escalations are going to be like 25 tally. And a lot of nodes are going to have like 4 tally per action just for connecting. And one of your escalations could be like get sent across the map. And you have to like go through 6 nodes just to get back to where you were, and that in and of itself will trigger another escalation while also costing you action points. And so the fact that you can drop these all down to functionally 1-point nodes matters, again, mostly in the late game. Individual tally per action is not such a huge deal early on, especially when the QSec itself is low power, but this is really, really nice. You really can't get this anywhere else, so it's really, really quite wonderful. The next thing she gives you is +2 turns when jamming security devices from the Matrix. Now, as we mentioned, right, Dade is really, really good with solo hacking. This is really, really useful for meat space hacking. One of the best things you can do by bringing a hacker on a mission is turning off a whole bunch of security devices. Now, if you're quick, the base duration of turning things off will get you most of the way there. I would say 80% of the time, maybe 70% of the time, the base duration is enough to get past the camera or the fence or whatever and get your entire team past that thing. Of course, she has to hack and then disconnect, then run over and all those things, and that can take time. +2 turns pretty much just guarantees it. This is really, really nice. And so ultimately, you're getting a lot fewer security escalations, which is very, very good. You are getting what feels like functionally infinite duration on security device jamming, which is great as well. And that's pretty wonderful. Now that said, you can replicate exactly this. It is hard to access. You can piece together a custom program by hacking a lot of hosts and getting a lot of source code fragments. And if you can craft it, you can actually craft a program that just sits on your bar. You have to turn it on, but then it sits on your bar, and it also increases the duration of security device jamming. But that is honestly pretty late game. And this is good at level 1. Also, endurance train as far as specifically hacking, this is just better than what you're getting here from Calm. So in terms of stress res, this is better here as well. So what Calm is giving you is recoil, which helps you in combat. Digital Rush and Digital Thief XCOM lets you blitz through hosts that little bit faster. But Remy is way better at making sure the host stays quiet, especially in the late game, which is going to be really relevant. Though arguably a little bit weaker in the early game, I would actually argue that's going to be true. But has a really, really good sort of extra talent here, which is quite nice, extra trait here. In total, if I'm me, I'm saying Remy is a slightly stronger character overall. It's by a really small degree, Again, it's not a huge deal, but the fact that no one else can do minus QSec tally, as far as I can recall, and that it's really hard to get plus security jamming, whereas it's not that hard to figure out ways to, get more armor and damage and AP and I and whatnot, that ultimately, the way the game is currently tuned, I would pick Remy on average, but it's really close, don't worry too much about it. Let's talk about hacker talents. So hackers are not only locked to doing stuff in the Matrix, though the vast majority of their talents, everything but this side of the tree and this node right here is directly related to hacking. We'll go through the left-hand side tree first, talk about the meat space stuff by jumping up here. Then we'll talk about the hacking suite and overall deliver some recommendations. Ultimately, a TLDR here is you really only need to spend around 10 to 13 points in hacker, and you're good for a really, really long time. If you're playing against harder Matrix hosts at higher power levels, you might want to start spending more, but pretty early on, there's not a whole lot you have to deal with here. So let's start with the primary, and I would say most important meat space talent here, which is packet loss. It is a very, very long range single target clear, which is quite nice. I honestly recommend almost always learning this. I recommend when you have a spare point, get the second charge here as well. And it's decent to get the plus duration here on top. I usually don't learn the plus duration. I do usually learn gain the charge. And this allows my hacker to be just useful enough where I can run my Cyber Knight, I can run 2 combatants, and my hacker takes the place of what would be a Vanguard or an Agent EX and has just enough to say where we don't need to run a stealth character as long as my guns are up to the task when we get inevitably slightly more reinforcements. By doing this, it allows you to kind of have him pay for a slot pretty well. I would say, generally speaking, grabbing the extra range here on packet loss not needed, nor is the extra charge here in most cases. I think it's not, especially because the charge requires spending 2 more points here, and hacker talents can be pretty precious. I would generally not recommend doing this. Next thing down the line is going to be prank here. So debuff an enemy. The enemy will be picked the next time the AI dispatches an agent to investigate an event. The range here, by the way, quite large at 25 meters. You can jump it to 35 and then a whopping, 50 meters with max upgrade here. You can make the cost 0 and you can get the cooldown and charge is pretty short here as well. Again, if you want to have your hacker especially replace what a Vanguard or EX would do, it's pretty close by. 3 Matrix AP is not, a complete trash attribute node. Here you are on prank, and ultimately hackers are not, they're not talent point starved, but they do want to spend the upgrades, right? Like the talent limit here, this is not going to be a problem for a really, really long time, but this thing is going to be constrained for you in some cases. Now, it depends what you want out of your hacker, especially if you don't need any more things to make hacking easier. You can say, well, I'm already in hacker. I could either multi-class into like soldier or sniper or something to get more damage, and that would be a, real possibility if you want to be more useful. Or you could say, well, you know what? I'm going to do some stuff that maybe a Vanguard or EX would do. I'm going to be the sneak for the team. And then Prank allows you to run around and guarantee that, oh, I'm going to like throw a grenade into this corner or something, or I'm going to have somebody walk through a camera on purpose, and then, okay, well, I'm going to prank, pick a couple specific guards and say, hey, you guys, you're gonna specifically go be sent to go investigate that camera or investigate that loud noise or whatever. Like, it's overall pretty useful. I don't need it too much, but this is a totally reasonable talent. It is 1 point away, and that point is pretty good by giving you Matrix AP. So if you want to invest here, you certainly can. Most of my builds don't do it, but it's totally a reasonable talent in and of itself. We then go into the 3 drone talents right now, and at day 6 of full launch, drones are pretty rare. They do exist in some factions. Brave Star and Free Streets Compact specifically run drones relatively frequently in higher power levels. Some Corpo enemies can run them as well, but they're a bit more rare in that regard. Ultimately, I would say don't bother with drone talents overall, but we can go through them really, really quickly. When you're attacked by a drone, debuff that drone with a stun and then minus accuracy into the end of next turn. Of course, if it's stunned, it can't shoot anyway, so who cares? You can drop some move speed and whatnot as well. Ultimately, again, a reactive, if I'm shot by a drone talent, is a pretty hard skip. I wouldn't bother. Next one up, though, is Upchain. This one actually is kind of playable. If you are in a combat mission against specifically Brave Star or Free Streets and it's high power level, they are very likely to bring drones in their reinforcement waves. This is the kind of thing that I think you reliably could bring and say, you know what, my hacker's going to be here and be useful in combat. We go up this way, we grab this node, bam, we grab Upchain, might move up and grab down shield as well. The actual combat power of this is pretty high, And if, for example, you have a very large roster for some reason, you say, actually, no, I've got a special anti-drone hacker. I've actually multi-classed into soldier, and I'm just going to be going in. I'm going to take the anti-drone stuff and soldier stuff, and I'm there to kill drones. Okay, fine. And in the future, when drones become more common and the mission advertises, hey, by the way, this is a mission with drones in it, I think much more reasonable. You can start looking at these. So when your team kills an enemy drone, debuff all drones in a large radius with minus initiative, minus action points. End of next turn is already going to be long enough duration in most cases, but if you want to bump that radius, you certainly can. If you want to bump the radius to gigantic, you certainly can. And these extra debuffs here are really worth it. If you're loading upchain, I think definitely take these 2 nodes, because 10% less multiplicative armor and a total of -4 AP is a huge downside. It makes this overall trait like more than twice as good. So I really recommend you do this. If you do want to go upchain, grab the other stuff. I don't know if you're going to need the duration, but if you're already here with a 40-meter radius, I can totally see other stuff being grabbed, and it's kind of okay. Finally, up here is downed shield, so it's a specific targeted debuff. Costs 1 action point. It's going to always cost 1 action point. What you can do here is debuff an enemy drone. Decent range, 25 meters is roughly assault rifle accuracy range. And it's crit vulnerability, it's minus armor. You can increase the crit vuln and minus armor. You can further increase the crit vuln and drop their move points so that they can't get into cover reliably or close the gap on you easily. You can further reduce the armor and crit vuln even more and more. And so this ends up being minus, 40, it's 40% crit vuln and minus 30% multiplicative armor. You can make it of effect, you can get extra charge, you can get some duration here. Again, if you're going to play a drone hunter, this is a very, very good drone damage talent. It is really hard to find a talent that is this much bonus damage, so through that lens, absolutely. But right now, today, in early June 2025, not a very great talent because you're just not against drones that often. I'm going to leap ahead briefly to Faked Vitals because it's the only other meat space talent, and then we'll talk about hacking in and of itself. So Faked Vitals is, I would say, the second best anti-corpse mechanic in the game. So the first best is the Scourge's talent Dissolve, which stops the body timer and hides the body so it can't be discovered. That's the best in the game. Nothing comes close. You can get consumables that replicate Dissolve, but Dissolve is just the best one. That said, Faked Vitals is the second best. It's 2 action points, which is kind of rough. 6-meter range is not bad on the start, and you can actually bring it up to 18, which is very generous. You can drop the AP cost to 0, and you get a second charge. Now, 2 charges, 5-turn cooldown. You're not getting a ton of these, but if you kill a guard, and you kill the guard well away from patrols and well away from the cameras, and you pop Fake Vitals on it, that guard is never going to generate tally for you. And keep in mind, a corpse will eventually generate 5 tally. It generates 2 when the timer runs out, and then it'll send a guard, the Sec AI will send a guard to investigate, and then when the guard finds that corpse, and they will, it'll generate 3 more from finding a body. That will generate, again, 3 tally. It will send another guard to go investigate, and you're going to have now 2 guards in the area, and that might be something you want because you distracted them. It might be something you don't want because now they're flanking you, who knows. But if you don't want the eventual 5 tally, the nice thing is, 5-turn cooldown and, again, you can drop the AP to 0, but 5-turn cooldown and 2 charges lines up pretty well with, let me just drop the first 2 corpses because their timers would have run out. And then, you know, either I've got someone else on my team who can do stuff like a Scourge, or I bring consumables or something else. And again, the fact that you could drop it to 0 AP and 18 meters, if you have spare points in Hacker, if you're ahead of the curve, you don't need anything else, Faked Vitals is, yeah, it's going to cost you talent points, but if you don't need them, it has no opportunity cost. It's 18 meters, 0 action points, which does not require anything at all from you, and you can just drop the body timers, they're gone, and they never get found. If you've got the spare talents, it's totally reasonable, but to me, I always want to push my hacker as hard as I can and get as good at hacking as I can, and so I tend to not learn this, but it's completely reasonable talent. I think it's completely playable. And again, there's totally a road where you play a bit more of a meat-spaced kind of hacker, or you're playing a Vanguard or something, or an Agent EX, and you want some corpse disposal. Now, if you want that, I would still go into Dissolve personally. But if you're like, no, I really want Packet Loss because Packet Loss is sick, and I want to go for a Packet Loss plus Faked Vitals play, okay. Honestly, I can buy that. I think it's actually not entirely unreasonable, and is a place that you could go for. But now it's time for the big meat and potatoes. It's time for the actual hacking specific talents. So intro talent 1, hard shell. Every single hacker should learn this. In the early game, slam it right away. In the late game, it's actually required for pathing, so you're probably going to learn it no matter what, regardless, because the nodes adjacent to it are hacking and armor, or like tech and armor and tech and hacking AP. So pathing this way, no matter what, is just kind of good. I can see very, very, very late game being like, no, actually, I'm going to go for faked vitals and then down through 0 interrupts. I doubt that's going to be really optimal. Maybe in like level 30 plus, but realistically, no, I really don't think you should. But whatever, the option is technically there for you. Anyway, hard shell, just at the very top. Learn it for 1 point, and you're just good. You should almost never need more than base hard shell. If you need some more deck shield, you can grab this one. Okay, fine. Keep in mind that the cooldown itself aligns with other things like overclock and even close enough to null op, such that dropping the cooldown doesn't really do much for you. You are mechanically basically never going to use a cooldown drop here. Because you're waiting for overclock many times as well, there's no point. Or you're using like a Cybernetics Rewind and getting them all back anyway. There's not really much reason to do so. Again, I wouldn't take +1 charge for a similar reason here. Getting more +10 shield, again, you don't really need it. I would absolutely never take this. 5 Matrix AP is nothing. It is not worth your talent point. Absolutely do not bother. This node, I think, honestly shouldn't exist because it's basically a trap. Again, I think 1 point hard shell is awesome, but it's also kind of all you'll ever need. The MVP talent really, though, is overclock. You should grab this. You should come close to maxing it pretty much as soon as possible. If you watched the earlier part of the tutorial, you would know that you are very, very IO starved in the early game. That makes things really difficult to deal with. The minus connection health is not that big of a deal. It eventually adds up to minus 12%. All three of these add to the debuff here. But at the end of the day, you're getting something like plus 180 IO, which is really worth learning this, plus all 4 upgrades here, the duration kind of required. Most hacks, I will say, take about 3 turns. Next 2 means this and the next 2, thus 3 turns of hacking. That lines up with a large percentage of your hosts. If you start running into larger hosts, things with like 20 nodes or more, grab this and grab the extra turn duration here. This will mean this and the next 3 turns ultimately, which means 4 turns of hacking. That will usually carry you through many large hosts. But you can save this one for a while. But I really would recommend pretty much jamming this entire thing and spending all 5 points to get all the points here. It's really, really worth it. This is the best hacking talent in the game. I think it's not close. It's just easily the greatest. We'll keep going up the right-hand side of the tree, and then we'll loop back towards the middle here. Next in line is null op. Null op is really, really great. Null op is direct damage to every ice on the node, considering if you run into a CPU or an alarm processing unit or a lot of other nodes like this where some of them require you to kill all the ice to spike it, you could use null op, and then the ice are all dead, and then you can scan, and then you can spike, and then you can move on and get your objective. This is also useful if the node is simply very, very scary. You run into an SPU and there's 4 ice there and they're all scary. Null op, they're gone. You'll take some tally. Fine. You'll take some tally, but the ice are all dead. Absolutely wonderful. Absolutely great stuff. +1 charge, absolutely grab this. Grab it as soon as it's convenient for you to do so. -10 AP, not a big deal. Again, you shouldn't tend to be action point starved very hard in most cases. Even if you are, honestly, I mean, it's okay. It's fine. It's just like you shouldn't jump for joy to grab this because you're only null opping twice per host. And keep in mind the equivalent here, right, is 10 Matrix AP is 1 meat space AP. So 2 times in 4 turns save 1 AP. And AP is not always your constraint because it might be IO. I just think this is meh, it's pretty mediocre. I wouldn't worry about it too much. The other nodes here are all damage. Now, I cannot tell you exactly when to take them. It depends on your difficulty levels. In the early game, you can basically just take a single 25 and you're good for a while. When you start seeing Matrix hosts say that they are yellow and orange, you're going to start grabbing more. When you start seeing red and ultra, you got to definitely grab the last one. You are not guaranteed to always fully one-shot, even with fully maxed out null op against the really, really high-level Matrix hosts if you low roll your damage and their ice high rolls their health. But realistically, you're going to want the plus charge. You're going to want to grab the damage as the hosts get stronger to make sure you are reliably one-shotting everything. And then, down the line, when you start getting bigger hosts and there's more nodes that are annoying to deal with, well, you grab the minus AP on the way to your 3rd charge. It's going to be, quite a few level points to get here, sure. But 3 charges of null op that one-shots everything. This is how you make nodes and hosts overall feel really convenient. Oh, CPU, null op, scan, spike. Oh, really bad SPU, null op, scan, move on. Here's an alarm processing unit, null op, scan, spike. It's just It's really free, it's really easy. This just gives you so much quality of life in the Matrix that I really, really recommend it. It's really amazing. Basically, yeah, get your 4 and overclock, get enough in null up to feel good. If you want to rush for the extra charge, you certainly can as well, but you don't really have to. We'll keep going up the right-hand side tree here. We can move up to Rampage. When you destroy an ice, gain bonus Matrix damage for the remainder of the turn. You can increase the duration some. You can get even more Matrix damage and more bonus AP. Now, Rampage specifically is trending toward a specific kind of hacking, which is using the nuke program a lot. That is specifically an endgame style of hacking. Now, mechanically, you do often want the plus damage because you want to make sure your nuke does enough damage to meet the breakpoints and always one-shot the ice. If you're not one-shotting ice, nuke is bad. Don't bother doing it. It's way worse than basic sleaze, disarm, etc. So the damage is useful. The AP, however, is not. Nuke is really, really IO heavy. It is not AP heavy. It does not cost you almost any action points in functional practice. It costs you a crap ton of IO. So the only reason to go here is to grab the damage stuff, and then to get the cooldown to 2 turns, the duration to 2 turns, so that you can almost permanent uptime Rampage. I have found this isn't quite needed, that there are more reliable and less finicky ways to handle this, because keep in mind, right, because Rampage is a passive, and lasts for 2 turns and triggers every 2 turns, you have to first trigger Rampage by killing ice, then you get your damage increase of, you know, a solid 45%, don't get me wrong, and then for the rest of that turn, and then all of next turn, Rampage is on, and then you go to turn 3, and again, you're left without Rampage on. You've got to find some way to kill some ice, and that means for one node every other turn, you're Rampageless. And if that, right, and there's 2 realities. Either you didn't need Rampage and they died anyway, in which case, why'd you learn Rampage? Or you needed Rampage, in which case, you got set behind an entire action having to nuke the whole node twice. Neither is great, and so to me, the ways to find Matrix damage should be elsewhere, like in programs. I'm not going to tell you that it's bad. I'm just going to tell you that it's a little bit awkward to play this playstyle. Now again, a nuke playstyle is totally viable, but Rampage is not always a part of it just because of how slightly awkward that is. Keep moving up to the side, and we have Ripper Compression. Now, Ripper Compression is absolutely great. I just mentioned that if you're playing a nuke playstyle, AP is not a concern, but IO is. Ripper lets you trade out some connection health and a little bit of Cyberdeck damage for IO. A little bit of AP, a little bit of Cyberdeck damage, but we have Hard Shell and things like that. A little bit of connection health, but it's fine. We can use something like Trunk Patch. This is how you get basically an extra turn or 2 when running the Matrix. Now, you can drop the cooldown to 3 turns. That is almost low enough to be useful. It means you can use Ripper again on turn 4 specifically. If you're doing a meat space hack, simply rely on Rewind from your Cyberknight, to be honest. But yeah, you can make it cost 0, which again, usually won't matter because if you're playing Ripper, you're already trading out AP for IO anyway. These are kind of dead nodes, unfortunately, but going here is the cool stuff, okay? Getting 75% of your Cyberdeck IO back is really, really, really good. And even if you aren't playing a nuke playstyle, if you're playing with level 3 scan, level 2 deception, level 2 disarm, and sleaze, if you're playing with a high-level Cyberdeck with high-level programs, IO is once again your constraint, not AP. So whether you're playing an offensive-focused nuke-based setup or a like stealthy disarm everything setup, you will get value out of Ripper Compression. It's going to depend a lot on exactly how much you upgraded, right? If you invested in programs a lot before investing a ton in your Cyberdeck, that you don't have a lot of IO from your deck, that can be a bit of a problem. I assume you've already maxed out Overclock, of course, here. If you actually did go for Rampage, you got some bonus AP, right? There's some little bit that can matter there. Ultimately, this is worth learning. The pathing is a little bit awkward because you don't always want to go through Rampage and you don't always need 0 interrupt. But it is good. I think every late game hacker, if you're invested in hacker, should have Ripper because there will be times where it matters and feels great. Let's go up the middle tree now. We already mentioned Hard Shell. Hard Shell is quite good. As far as these little individual nodes are concerned, you have control over Dump Shock. I would not bother going through here. In terms of getting Cyberdeck Armor and Matrix AP, those are kind of nice. Going up here for Cyberdeck Armor and AP are fine as well. But primarily, I have found that, again, if you want to go up this way to grab Faked Vitals and then come up the middle, you certainly can. But I like going up the middle myself. But again, this is a very, very viable pathing you could go for if you wanted to and move around in these directions and grab these. I'm not going to litigate your pathing too much. It's not a very big deal. But let's start moving up and look at the middle points here. So first up is Spoof. And actually here, just like, here's what a, example page might look like. We have this kind of stuff going on. We have this. I want to make sure I have enough points to spare, but yeah, this is like a very normal early setup here. We're like relatively early on. We've got 18 points spent. We're like level 10-ish right now. Like nothing too spicy. 1 point in a hard shell. Here's us. Okay, so spoof is great. Now, what's nice is the way that hacking level ups work. It lines up really, really well with difficulty scaling and the need of spoof. Early on, don't rush this. I would never tell you level 1 to go run up here and grab spoof and like lose points in overclock or lose points in null op. It's not worth it. When the game starts telling you you're running into orange hosts roughly, is around the time you want to seriously consider spoof. Now again, what actually matters here, like very directly, what actually matters here is the difficulty of the QSec AI. So something higher than Sidewinder, so you get a Timber Rattler or a Pit Viper or a Diamond Cobra. That's when you're like, okay, I'm seeing those, it's time for spoof. So spoof blocks a QSec escalation. The duration is 2 turns. If you're against a Timber Rattler plus, you are going to pop this within 2 turns. Like, much like hard shell and overclock, just pop this at the very start. It's gonna happen, don't worry. What it's going to do is just simply block a QSec AI escalation. It's decent, it's very reasonable. The things you're pathing through to get there is tech and armor and AP, wonderful stuff. The difficulty is that it's gonna cost you 3 points to get 1, 2, 3, and get 2 tokens. These are great. Spoof, like after we look at overclock and then null op and we have the mandatory hard shell, spoof is next in line as is this not just wonderful? You really do want to block QSec AI escalations once you're against, again, Timber Rattler plus AIs, because that's when they start getting really annoying. They'll start unloading even more of your program. They'll start turning on more ice around the map. They'll start moving you around. They'll start damaging you. They'll start triggering stress. Like all that stuff is really annoying. Really awkward to deal with, and you don't want to deal with it. And so spoof is great. Now that said, as far as my actual recommendation, spend the 1 point on it and then wait for a while until other stuff is done, but then come back relatively soon and get the bonus upgrades. We then go to Scapegoat. Scapegoat to me is next in line. It is next in line behind spoof as great and really, really wonderful. You get 2 Scapegoat tokens, which prevent ice from increasing tally on death. And talent, these tokens don't last very long. You can get 3 and then 4 tokens. Once again, this ends up mattering when you start hitting high level hosts. So the primary benefit is, well, I'm going to use null op and destroy ice. Now, if you specifically go and like disarm and sleaze and deception and such that the ice are disabled, they will not generate tally on death. But if you're going to walk into a CPU and just smack null op and blow up some ice, bam. Now, CPUs and things like that are minimum 2 ice on the node, so baseline works out great. As you get higher power level, you get to 3 and then 4 ice on the node. And so, bam, you get a 3rd token and then a 4th token. And isn't that wonderful? You can block all the stuff here. Great. And so my general expected pathing is grab spoof, come up here, grab scapegoat, and then go to 3 and then go to 4. This will usually be like in the level 13-ish range, roughly about here, I think is my ballpark math. And it's like, yeah, look, by now I've got 2 charges of null op. By now we're running into really annoying nodes with like SPUs and stuff where I'm just like, these ice suck. I'm going to throw null op down. Cool, great, have fun. You did it. Good job. And not getting tally from it, very, very useful. And there's 2 things that line up here really, really well. Okay, so first of all, passive ice generate 5 tally, active ice generate 10, and trap ice generate 15. Now what's cool is that tally is directly proportional to how scary the nodes are in the first place. You walk into an SPU and it's got like a useless trap, 1 active, and 2 passives. You're like, well, I don't give a crap. I'll just disable everything. Great. You don't scapegoat. You walk into one and it's like, here's 2 traps, 2 actives, and they're all horrible. You're like, oh, 15 plus 15 plus 10 plus 10. That's 50 tally. That's more than a full escalation. Scapegoat. Scapegoat, on the gnarliest nodes known to man, is worth more QSec tally than even spoof is worth. Seems great. I love it. Please give me scapegoat. This sounds wonderful. And so you spend the 3 points here and you can block 4. Again, now the math really depends on exactly how strong your QSec AI are. Like, let's say on average it's 10 tally per ice destroyed, which I think is not unreasonable. Okay, well, you're going to on average block 40 tally by spending 1 to learn it and then 2 more to grab the extra 2 tokens. Okay, so I'm blocking 40 tally for 3 points plus 1 for travel. Well, I can just spend 3 points here and get the 2nd charge of spoof. And if the escalations take more than 40, spoof is just better than scapegoat. If the escalations cost fewer than 40, and we are using things like null op, scapegoat is just better than spoof. Great. And again, because higher level QSec AIs require less tally per escalation when you start hitting, again, pit vipers and whatnot, and it's 35, 40, 25, whatever, 35, 30, 25, Scapegoat is great. And so what ends up happening is you say, okay, well, I've got Scapegoat. Cool, I've got these charges here. That's feeling pretty good. I then come in and say, hey, I'd like to block 2 escalations, please. And you come back and you say, hey, Scapegoat, please give me a second charge here. And you're like, cool, I'm solidly into mid-game now, or even, you know, like early end game. And what do? Well, I load on the host. I load Spoof. Cool. For 3 turns, I'm going to block 2 escalations. Escalation 1, Escalation 2, both blocked. I also load Scapegoat. Walk on SPU, null op it. Walk on the CPU, null op it. Okay? Those didn't generate any tally. We still have an escalator. Oh, by the way, the CPU, I'm QSec level 2, but nothing happened. I'm at the CPU. I spiked CPU back down to level 0. I've hit 0 escalations at all. I have half cleared a red tier host, and none of the ice made any escalation on dying. None of the escalation generated any escalations. We're chilling, and CPU spiked back down to 0, and wow, wasn't that convenient. And then you can do it all again by using Rewind from your Cyber Knight, and you are just breezing through the hosts. Level 18 for this, not unreasonable. You could kind of look at what my build is right now. I'm level 18. It's like, well, I could get damage here. I could save the AP. I could get a 3rd charge. Like, yeah, you get a little tight around now. You can start, unlearning things like packet loss. But yeah, Scapegoat is great. I would not really bother going for the 3-turn cooldown. Yes, there is a world where on turn 4, you would use Scapegoat another time and block another roughly 40 tally. But to me, turn 4 often doesn't matter, and you can use those 2 points elsewhere. What I recommend is Trunk Patch. So I would legitimately recommend getting these points and these points before going into Trunk Patch. I would also consider going Zero Interrupt. I actually forgot to bring up Zero Interrupt. We'll bring that up next. But what you can go for is Trunk Patch. So Trunk Patch, when you start getting into late game stuff, some of the high level programs you load will actually start to degrade your connection more than just what Overclock is doing. And the security, the QSec tally, and escalations, might blow past what you can do with Spoof, and thus you might have this happen. And you're going to start losing connections sometimes. Now again, late game hacking is not AP starved, it is only IO starved. And so a talent like this that costs AP, but doesn't cost IO, because no talents cost IO, is wonderful. It's basically free. Now at a baseline, 10 connection health is okay. 5 quantum tally is okay. You can come in here, and you can get another 5 tally, you can get another 5 connection, you can get another 10 connection here, so you can get 25 connection, 10 tally. You can come through here. Again, the free AP cost means very, very little, but you can get a second charge here. And so, again, do I care about a 4-turn cooldown? No. Do I care about a 3-turn cooldown? Still probably no. But what I get is 25 connection and 10 tally twice. So I'm getting 50 connection health and 20 quantum tally. Now, again, 20 quantum tally is not what Scapegoat's giving me. It's giving me 80. It's not giving me what Spoof's giving me. Spoof's giving me 2 entire escalations. But 50 connection health, that's probably 2 escalations in itself. If I'm hitting connection damage escalations, this will entirely unwind them at basically no cost with a freebie of 10 and with a charge 20 minus tally, which is almost an escalation by itself. So in some cases, Trunk Patch capped out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Trunk Patch plus 6 is roughly 3 escalations. That's not quite that, right? And that's not quite as good at Spoof being plus 3 for 2 escalations, or Scapegoat plus 6 for, I guess, 2 itself, or 3 to 4 itself, whatever. This is going to be like 1.5 escalations twice, about 3 escalations. Yeah. So again, these are all quite good. They're all close together. There's no traveling to really do here, but I would still recommend, right? Spoof 1, Scapegoat 1, 2, 3. Spoof, grab your next 3, then go into Trunk Patch probably. The final honorable mention is Zero Interrupt. Zero Interrupt is very good. It's just swimming in a sea of other very, very good talents that are all relatively talent hungry. You can see here that I totally have space for it. I'm level 18. If I didn't invest so hard in Scapegoat, or maybe I didn't learn Trunk Patch, I could, of course, make room for Zero Interrupt. And in fact, if I didn't load Scapegoat at all, or Trunk Patch at all, I could totally have taken like Faked Vitals. That would be fine as well. Or go into like something like Cryptic Compression. Definitely a viable option. I could even undo packet loss, but I would generally recommend against doing that. Regardless, Zero Interrupt is quite nice. Debuff all ice in local node with lagged, temporary disabled until the end of next turn. If you want to add a turn duration, you can. You can get these upgrades. Okay, so again, minus 5 AP is a joke. Never learned this. Don't bother. Going from a 5-turn cooldown to 4, do not bother. It's not worth it. Again, the 5-turn cooldown aligns with a lot of your other stuff already, like Overclock, like Hard Shell, even lines up with Baseline Spoof. And, I mean, again, you're kind of forced to take this, but, like, I wouldn't bother here, I wouldn't bother here, I wouldn't bother here. But what this is, it is basically Turbo Nuke. So it doesn't destroy the ice, which means you don't get any tally for it, but it does turn them all off. And being that it's a talent, it will, of course, preempt any possible ice. Ice will not get any reaction on you. If you're walking somewhere dangerous and maybe you're out of no-op charges, or you didn't upgrade it very much, or who knows the reasons why, you don't want to generate tally, who knows. Zero Interrupt is no frills. This node is dead for this turn and next turn. And if you want to invest +2, you can say and the turn after that as well. Now, a couple of points here. Number one, 2 turns can be pretty quick in the Matrix. If you're using Zero Interrupt on a crossroads, don't use it on something, use like no-op on it instead. Additionally, if you have to reconnect to the Matrix, reconnecting counts as a new turn, which means if I Zero Interrupt, move around a little bit, wait for next turn, right? It's turn 2, Zero Interrupt's still on, my connection health gets low, I disconnect and log back in, Zero Interrupt is now over, and whatever I disabled is now back. And Zero Interrupt has a 5-turn cooldown. Guess what? You don't have it again. So if it's a crossroads, you should prioritize using null op. If it's like, oh, I'm just going to go to the security control unit and just take everything down because I don't want to deal with this and just turn off all the cameras because I'm like really AP starved this turn, great. You're never going back, totally works. You want to go for your downloads or whatever, great, totally works. If you want to use it as budget scapegoat by turning off all the ice in the node and then null-opping it, that will also work because they'll be disabled, which means they will not generate tally. Now, again, Scapegoat just does that already. Zero Interrupt can do something else, such as get you around the node that's scary, but like, yeah, it's a real possibility. If you really want, you can grab the +1 here, but if you use it wisely, you really shouldn't. And also my experience has been that, like, instead of going out and diving in like this, spending 2 points to, like, you know, get 1 plus charge here on null op, right? Spend 2 points for +1 charge, spend 2 points for Zero Interrupt. I would just generally take null op because you don't have the risky downside of, like, what if I come back? And so it's like a little bit easier to deal with overall. Ultimately, a tree somewhat like this is what your hacker is probably going to look like around level 18. Again, you don't need the duration here. You might want to, instead of investing quite as hard in Scapegoat or Trunk Patch, instead of going for these 4 points right now, you could totally have gone for maxing out null op investment instead. Yes, I'm going to get more escalations, but I'm also going to be guaranteed blowing everything up until I'm at Ultra Hosts, and even then I'm probably okay. That is my rundown on hacker talents. Let's move forward. So, Cyberdecks are important here. Let's talk about Cyberdecks. We'll start with Powerful and Rare. You start with the PDP 1900, and it is possible at the very start of the game to buy the Niklon Cylor 11.0. It's not terribly cheap. It's going to cost you 150k out of the box here, but you can buy it from a Wire Ghost, and it's just enough breakpoints to matter. So 10 AP, relatively useful in the early game. 40 IO, absolutely hits a breakpoint that matters in terms of being able to load enough programs. And the bigger one is the active memory going to 360. This does 2 things for you. One, it allows you to load all 5 level 1 programs, so scan, sleaze, disarm, deception, and attack. That can sometimes be very awkward in the early game, especially if you don't have null op up all the time, although you probably should. The other thing it does is it actually now gives you enough active memory to pretty cleanly start investing in level 2 programs. Now, at the very, very start of the game, the only programs you can buy is level 2 scan. Level 2 deception, disarm, and co are not available at the very start. But once you're here, you can grab level 2 scan and feel pretty good about it. We'll talk more about upgrading programs later, but it is a pretty useful sort of breakpoint. Keep in mind, though, again, that as you get high level programs, you are trading higher net IO costs for lower net AP costs, so keep that kind of in mind. But ultimately, you grab that one, and then from then on, you're basically looking for limit breaks on your Wire Ghost contacts to give you better and better and better and better and better Cyberdecks. Realistically, finding the breakpoint you care about is going to be kind of up to you. I have found that, of course, these are each going to be at their own level, so here's level 3 decks and 4 and then 5 and then 6, and so it's kind of a mix of what you can afford and what you've even got access to. You can use co-conspire and sell accounts to try to force your Wire Ghost to get a bunch more limit breaks, but ultimately, it's what you can afford. At the end of the day, IO, late game is king. IO is what you are going to be churning through all the time in late game hacks. The short of it is really just buy the best thing you can. That's just kind of how it works out, without much more to really bring up here. I don't have much more I can really provide you other than you kind of have to make your own considerations. The one, I guess, big thing I'll bring up is absolutely make certain that you have enough active memory to fit all the programs you want to use. If you get blocked on total active memory, you're going to be incredibly sad, and your experience is going to be horrible. So do a little bit of note-taking to make sure that it's going to line up well. Which brings us to, let's talk about programs. There are a lot here. Let's start by getting rid of a couple of people and just look at things that come out of the basic WireGhost program selling service. Let's sort by name so it's a little bit easier. Oh yeah, we already are. Okay. So yeah, attack 1, attack 2, attack 3, you'll notice, right, we compare to level 2. This is the way that basically all ice work. You'll notice the IO cost goes up a ton. The program rating goes up, which doesn't always matter, but the IO cost goes up by a lot. But you'll notice that the AP per use here goes from 5 per use to 3 per use. And instead of, or sorry, wait, that's program level. I'm griefing. Attack's not a good comparison. Let's use scan, because scan 2 is available from the beginning of the game. Scan 1 to scan 2. This is a more apt comparison. So for all the basic stealth programs, scan 1 to scan 2, sleaze 1 to sleaze 2, disarm 1 to disarm 2, and deception 1 to deception 2, they all take 40 more IO. And again, if we think about it, right, it costs 240 to load the basic 4 programs. If I level everything up by 1, or I load up one thing by 1, right, 240, then 280, then 320, then 360, then 400, then 440, right? Those are sort of your breakpoints of what your program is going to cost you in the early game. Which is why if we go back to the Cyberdecks here and we say, hey, it's really nice if we sort, again, going from 300 to 320 is one breakpoint, right? 360 is another couple of breakpoints, right? We could have only loaded so much. Now we can generate more, and that's nice. This gives us enough active memory to load an entire suite of programs. That's very, very useful because, again, we were capped with attack that way before. But yeah, the way that this basically works out, we'll compare scan 1 to scan 2. Again, 40 more IO. Rating usually doesn't matter. Just upgrade your Cyberdecks. You're going to be fine. But you can see here, loading the program will still always cost 5. That is basically unchanging. The IO is going to go up to 100 from 60, which we know. The AP per use, though, goes from 3 to 2, and instead of getting 4 charges, we have 6 charges. So we have to load the program once per 6 uses instead of once per 4 uses, and the uses themselves cost fewer action points. TLDR, pretty obviously, Scan 2 is less AP intensive than Scan 1. Of course. However, even if you prorate the number of actions here, it is still more IO intensive overall. And again, you have to still make sure that your breakpoints line up in terms of deck IO, that your breakpoints line up in terms of deck memory. But again, you're going to be trading off constantly on IO versus AP. And again, looking at your Cyberdecks here, right, we compare baby Cyberdeck to late game Cyberdeck. The IO is doubled. Now, don't think about the action boost too much. It's plus 40 actions when you start at like 70, 80, 90 or whatever. The IO is the big one. The active memory is the big one. Trust me, that's the way the programs actually scale up. But yeah, as you have the space, you want to get up to sleaze 2. You want to get up to scan 2 and then eventually scan 3. Compare to scan 3 here, and it's like, oh yeah, I get like 8 instead of 4 charges. But again, 140 instead of 60, more than double the IO. 1 action point per scan instead of 3, and it's just much more convenient. Keep in mind that because QSEC tally is per action, having to load the program less frequently means less QSEC tally there as well. All wonderful stuff. A lot of these you'll get +1 charge. You can see sleaze goes to a 4th charge. You'll see disarm goes to a 3rd charge, and you'll see that deception goes to a 3rd charge as well. My recommendations, by the way, are scan 2, then deception 2, then scan 3, then sleaze 2, then disarm 2. Right now, deception 3, disarm 3, sleaze 3 are not in the game, but early on, that's what we're going to go for. Next thing up, once you've got these feeling pretty good, especially if you have a lot of deck memory that you can hold a lot of programs, you're going to really like Decoy. Decoy lets you, it does a really fun thing, which is it volunteers to be unloaded. Once you start getting high-level programs like Scan 3 with 140 IO, it sucks to lose 140 IO from a Matrix escalation. Well, Decoy 1 is only 80. It's not really so bad. And what's fun is it actually does something on program load. It gives you 10 deck shield, and while it's loaded, gives you 2 deck armor. Which, you know, does a nice job of basically replicating what Hardshell does. Now, again, you're not AP starved anyways, who cares? But once you've got the space to fit another 80 IO in your deck, either in your opening load as well as in your active memory as well, you suddenly start feeling really good about holding this up and feeling really good, and you can kind of bank a lot of stuff here. You can get better versions of Decoy. You can get Decoy Hot, which also helps to refund the IO cost by giving you 40 IO here. Decoy 2, just simply a bigger version of this, costs more IO, but only by a little, but gives you more deck, more shield, more whatever. If you can spare the IO, you can get a better Decoy. You feel good about that one. There are other options here, like Data Filter, which says I'm going to trade out some Matrix AP for Cyberdeck armor. Sure, it's mini Decoy in that regard. We have Data Sieve here. I can trade out AP for deck armor and some IO. That's kind of nice as well. We take those. This is a nice program. Again, late game hacking is AP flush. It needs IO. This seems kind of nice. Trace Vector here is I can just get some flat damage. Trace Vector 1 and 2 is just leave it on. Don't worry. Decoy is covering it. Increase my overall deck damage. Isn't that nice? That sounds great. Final option here is Nuke. So Nuke is the only other sort of unique program out here. Nuke is one way to totally approach late game hacking. You notice the base damage here on Nuke is not really any higher than Null Op, but if you're stacking things like Overclock, if you're stacking things like Trace Vector, you can get a good amount of damage here, and this will eventually add up to one-shotting Ice almost always in the nodes. And the tough thing is, it is 400 IO per load, and it's 2 charges each. Which means, okay, even if you one-shot every single node costs 200 IO. 800 IO is reachable, just barely, and that means you're getting 4 nodes a turn. Now, early game beginning hackers can already get through 4 nodes a turn. Nuke is going to do so while also generating a ton of quantum, or QSEC tally from destroying Ice, but it is also a very chill, very easy one-stop shop. It also makes you immune to the Ice reaction or the QSEC reaction escalation of restart all the Ice in the node, because they're all dead and they can't come back. There's no reinforcements like in Meat Space. I'm not going to say it's not viable, because it's totally reasonable. It is going to be hard to have enough IO to hold Nuke and all the stuff and all your stealth programs, such that if you run into a scary node, you nuke instead. What you could do is stealth hack for a while, use Null Op when needed, and then if you're out of Null Op charges, switch to nuking the last few nodes. That'll also work pretty well. Not only can you generate programs from buying them on the market and influence limit breaking your contacts, you can also craft them yourself from your cold storage, provided you find the pieces of the file set in Matrix hosts that you hack. So you have a chance of getting pieces of a compiled source code. You can see source code C123, F123, B123, E123, A123, and D123 are some of the options here. There are probably others here as well, but regardless, if you get all the pieces together, you can craft them into an individual piece. It's going to go the normal way. You mint it as a file set. You come to your files here. You look for things that are not used by a set, and you say, hey, does this have a use action? If so, let me get in there and let me craft a new program. And you install it to your Cyberdeck as you normally would. One of the primary ways to progress your hacker is to get new gear from your contacts. We actually went through the list of Cyberdecks and programs overall, but realistically what it comes down to is meeting one of your contacts here and running missions for them, or hitting them with co-conspire, or selling them accounts. Pretty much all WireGhost contacts buy all accounts and pretty much all files, and so selling them file sets, selling them epic and legendary accounts, using co-conspire and generating missions will let you upgrade the various services. This is a special WireGhost who's got the utility program service here as well, which allows him to sell special things. But yeah, you want to get Cyberdecks up, you want to get programs up, you want to get utility programs up, and overall have access to better stuff you would have otherwise. The next piece of progression is actually using cyber surgery. So every hacker, by definition, must have a Matrix link. You can, in fact, get a Matrix link too. It is slightly better. It gives +1 tech. It gives a few Matrix action points. It gives 1 deck armor. It repairs a bit of connection. This is relatively cheap and relatively short, sure, but ultimately, if you already got Matrix Link 1, there are better ways to spend your initial money in getting stronger. This is most of the price of an upgraded Cyberdeck in the first place, and it's going to give you more stuff than 1 deck armor, 1 tech if you're Matrix AP. Eventually this will make the cut, but it's going to be a while. The primary benefit is actually getting Neural Toner 2. This is the really big one. There's a Neural Toner 1, there's a Neural Toner 2. If you can wait until you can get Toner 2, I recommend it. The price tag is not even twice as much. The downtime is the same. And because ripping out an implant doesn't let you sell it back compared to, say, selling a Cyberdeck or selling a gun, holding on here can be really, really valuable. The primary benefit is, again, The price tag is cheaper than getting a new Cyberdeck, but the upgrade is 120 IO, it's 10 AP, it's interesting enough some initiative because your range is working better. The wound res is something that is skippable, 1 tech it's fine, I mean it's not going to do anything too special, but really for less than a new deck you're getting probably like 2 tiers of Cyberdeck worth of bonus IO. This is very clearly worth it. You've got to find time to spend the money and specifically find the downtime where you can be without your hacker for 9 days. One way to do that is to have 2 hackers and then have one be down and the other comes up afterwards. But this is a heavily recommended, pretty early on upgrade. The next place to start talking about hacker power is buying leverage. So one of the places to do so is the hacking station. This is pretty useful overall. I would say for the most part, when doing meat space hacks, it's not terribly important that you buy these things. Of course, they're still pretty cheap. It's kind of nice. You can reset your IO, get a whole bunch of stuff. The types of leverage available are actually based on the mission type itself. So based on what you've got going on, you'll have different things available here. Ultimately, the ones that are most useful here is running anything IO based or map reveal based when you're doing a solo matrix hack, because those are specifically timed, and so getting as much progress per turn as possible is paramount, because otherwise you might not get the rewards or even complete the mission at all. Whereas in meat space missions, you can usually wait around, try to reconnect, find other stuff going on, and even then in meat space missions, you can often pay for extra leverage there as well. And so an example of that would be this mission here, once we're in the Command HQ for mission planning, is you've got Matrix Snoop. And Matrix Snoop is really quite amazing. It's definitely pretty expensive late game, but hey, I'm on this mission where my difficulty settings are to receive half money from every mission. My Snoop is 110k. The mission still earns me more than 600k itself, plus whatever I can loot out of the spot. Now, of course, I don't want to go hacking. I don't have to. I don't have to spend this tax, but this will very often pay for itself. Once you're high power level like this, a single weapon blueprint will more than pay for the Matrix Snoop, and the simple ease of access and lack of heartache and overall just rapidity through which you can get through the host, I find is often worth the price tag. This is, to be fair, pricey enough that it's a little bit debatable, but I would say it's so convenient running through hacks like this that I think it's pretty worthwhile. Alright, well, with all that in mind, let's show off some late game hacking. My hacker is level 32. I've got a max level Cyberdeck with max level programs. I've got a ton of talents here. We're going to load Overclock as always. We're going to load Spoof and Scapegoat as always. And the plan here is, well, let's see what we're going to do. Well, we got a bunch of leverage. Let's actually do that real quick. We've got a single-use IO boost program, which is going to be here. So we can do that to load that up, and we get mortality per action, we lose connection, but hey, we get 100 IO per turn, which is kind of nice. We can CPU reveal and be like, okay, we get to find the CPU, and apparently we get the SPU here as well. That seems fine to me. We can use this to get even more IO and Matrix AP, and that's all my leverage, right? So, cool. What are we looking for? Well, let's start by doing stealth hacking and going kind of downwards. We'll start going this way, and then, now let's go right. Okay, let's start by doing a bunch of nuke hacking. Okay, so I'll load scan because I should. I guess I can show you what happens if I don't load scan. All right, let's do that. We're going to load decoy because we want to load decoy. And I don't need more than decoy 1. It's fine. We're going to load trace vector 1 and 2 because we got to get the matrix damage. We're going to load nuke 2. You can see that the IO is already getting a little bit tight. I've only got about 500 IO to go. Thankfully, if I were to use Ripper compression, I get a lot of that back. But for now, what I can do is just simply blindly walk through and nuke things and see how it goes. In fact, I've also got null up, which I might want to do as well. No idea what's here, but let's just null out for fun. Alright, it's probably all gone, but I have no idea if there's anything here. Move forward, nuke that. It's probably all gone as well. I can start counting, right? How much damage did I deal? You know, how much is going on there? Looks like I'm blocking a lot of tally. It's a little bit, you know, lossy. I don't really know what's going on. You know what? I should probably load scan just to know what I've got. Okay, we scan. Alright, these are kind of dead nodes. Good to know. I can nuke this as well. It's gone. Alright, well, my IO's kind of starved, so I should probably do something about that. Well, I'm going to hit Ripper compression no matter what. So I guess I might as well... Well, let's load Scapegoat to block more escalations. Let me go ahead and hit Decoy 2 because I've got space for it. Let's hit Ripper Compression and get some IO back. That's pretty cool. In fact, probably should have loaded this, and, you know, that was a mistake not to have, so, you know, maybe I need that at some point, but it's okay. For now, I'll walk around. And if I hadn't scanned, this would have been a bit more awkward, but I do need to load Nuke first. Go here. We'll nuke this as well. All right, we got everything. We got a bunch of downloads. It's kind of nice. Great. And yeah, we have so much deck armor that, like, we didn't notice that the escalation was dealing some damage to us. Okay, we can keep moving then, that's fine. We scan, more downloads here, cool, nuke that. Okay, that popped a trap, so it looks like, yeah, this trap popped, so we, like, lost some AP, we have more tally for this action. Here's what it is. An escalation, 8 health, it's fine. Take our downloads, keep moving forward. Need to load nuke again? Okay, will do. Oh no, the local ice got woken up. Don't worry, it's all nuke, doesn't matter. Alright, walk over, nuke this, it's all gone. I lost one I lost one deck armor, oh no. Take our downloads out of AP for this turn. It's fine. Looks like we got what we came for on this turn, so we'll end it. Turn went pretty well. As you can see, when you're really, really late game, you can just kind of nuke stuff and not care too much. Finish my downloads. Obviously, walk to the CPU. Got to knock this one down as well. Okay, if you take an action, steal some stuff, is what it is. And notice, we didn't get quite enough damage, right? So you can run into damage problems, unfortunately. And what I'm going to do here, because I want to save my null op charge. I don't know what this is. I have no idea. I'm just going to null op, or sorry, I'm going to zero interrupt, because I don't know what I'm dealing with here. And, okay, it's an overload. I can't load programs while it's on. Oh, not the end of the world. I guess I should load attack then to kill it cleanly. That seems good enough. Okay, I attack. I spike the CPU. Great. That part's done. Realistically, there might only be something useful here. These nodes are, you know, travel nodes. This is too, but maybe something there matters, so I should walk up. I should load nuke. I should go knock this down. We see what's here. Okay, yeah, there are downloads. Great. Let's walk over. Let's take some downloads. Yep, get some AP stolen. It's fine. 9 deck shield. Well, we are running out of shield, though, so unfortunately, I'm kind of in that spot where it's worth hard shell. Sure, let's do that. Lose some more deck shield. You can see the escalations, despite 14 deck armor, are still that scary. So you can see, like, yeah, you know, deck armor is kind of nice. You might want some deck armor for some things. We're looking okay. Again, no reason to walk through these nodes. Let's walk back. Go all the way back here. I got rerouted. Okay. Well, let's just be safe and just null op this. I don't want to deal with it. Now, what I can do, real quick, we're partway through the hack already. We have, you know, plenty of connection damage happening already. We've got tally kind of going up. We should just hit trunk catch a couple of times. So we underflow a little bit of tally there. We got our connection health back up to a good spot. And now, you know, let's go back to, you know, the good old safe stuff here. I honestly have not... Yeah, let's just do stealth hacking now for the rest of this one. So we did a nuke thing. It was kind of fun. We don't need the trace vectors, but they're not in the way. So let's just kind of do the rest of it, right? So what's here? Well, we got to start figuring out what's most important, right? When there's more than one ice on a node, you can see the health bars are pretty high here. Block program loading, not urgent. Connection youth, not urgent. But 5 tally per action, yeah, that matters. Okay, we'll deception you. Okay. While we're here, we'll scan. Oh, I can't actually. Okay, I need to actually get some way to load this back up. So we've got a block program loading. We get rerouted because of escalations. Okay, fine. Drop you. Cool, we can load scan. A little bit nicer there. We see this is going to be a pretty annoying node. I can bypass it for a bit, though, and go south instead. That seems acceptable. I've got enough AP, got enough programs. We're good for a little while. Tally on any action is actually, you know, has immediate impact. This one, of course, does not, so we'll start here. It woke up 4 ice in random locations. This is some of them. Connection use is blocked, so I've got to keep moving. We know there's nothing special here because squares never have traps in them, so we walk forward. 4 AP versus tally versus what? What's the most important here? I'm going to go choose for the AP. We'll take the tally. We're going to escalate. We lost decoy. It's not the end of the world. Oh, I think I pressed the wrong thing, and this is still here generating tally. So, whoops, that was a mistake. I'm going to walk off. I have to walk actually farther. Ah, crap. Okay, I screwed up here. I'm just going to null up this. I made a mistake and got into a weird spot. We're out of IO for the turn, though, so I'm just going to stop here and say it is what it is, and pick it back up next turn. So, we have scan. We look for nearby stuff. We see there's almost certainly traps here, based on what we can tell. If we reload decoy, I get a nice amount of armor. I get some shield back. We know where you need anti-trap. We know we need anti-passive, so we'll grab this guy. Let's see what's on the scan. And it's getting rerouted. That's fine, though, because this is not a dangerous node. Block the AP, block connection stuff. We know this node made us relocate. But because we were adjacent, we got to scan from this side and put a second scan in. So I know actually everything about this. So we have, if you use a program, relocates. That's fine. If you exit steal AP, got to deal with you eventually. Download access block, of course, has to go down. We take our 3... Ow, a little bit of damage. It's fine, though. Take our 3 downloads. Block you so you don't hurt us when we leave. Great. We see what's here. We don't know about traps, but it's going to be okay, probably. 10 damage to Cyberdeck on any action is not a big deal. I have so much armor, who cares? We'll scan. I get relocated. We scan. What do we see? Download, download, and download. Okay, well, we just take down all 3. We get more tally per action, which kind of sucks, but can't do much about that one. Lose a bit of health. It's fine, though. These are all blocked. We have traps. Yep. Again, escalations we're at sec level 22. We're not even done yet. Some of that delivered by Nuke, some of that because it's just kind of tough. We move forward, we get a much nicer node here. What do we have? Use a program relocate, damage to Cyberdeck, download access. I still need to scan for second traps. There are no second traps, that's good. Download access, take our downloads. And then I want to see what's here because it might be useful. And realistically, with what I'm seeing, I kind of just want to nuke it. So I'm going to load nuke here, walk up, take these down, AP cost and connection use. And I'm just going to walk here and get rid of most of them. I get escalated, I get moved around. We actually didn't even kill everything. That's fine, though. I come back, I deception this, we get rid of the rest of it, we get a free account, and then, you know what? That's the host. We got what we came for. We can disconnect. We got downloads from, I mean, a good number of spots, right? 4 up there, 3 down here, plus this had something. That seems pretty decent. We can end our turn. Oh, sorry, I mean a disconnect. There we go. And you can see what we got from this, right? What we can kind of get out of endgame hacking like this. We had plenty of deck shield. We got a decent amount of armor. We don't, of course, get to do SimStream Trainer XP, but yeah, you get a whole ton of stuff. You get a lot of accounts. I mean, with 20 influence per legendary account, that's going to be 60 influence to a wire ghost, so it's basically a limit break already. We get a solid amount of blueprints we can sell. We get a good number of files we can find some use for as well. And that's what late game hacking looks like. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.